Yeah, I think this is a good one. I like Laura Ingraham when she speaks uh, about some positive stuff. And let's see what she got to talk about now. She went down to Minneapolis, over Minneapolis, to find out what's going on with Laura Ingram's view.
Look, there is nothing like being on the ground, talking to people, to try to get a clearer picture of the story, which is what we did today in Minneapolis. Right now, there are about 300 people here, fairly peaceful. I guess some Antifa are back there, but they're going to have the fires, food, water, a lot of people in masks, but people are coming out and expressing themselves. And it kind of takes on almost a community civic event. I wouldn't say celebration, but it's a gathering. And although it was pretty peaceful, and it really was. I mean, in that vigil, it was basically people, they had a fire, they were giving out food, water, and, some people were chanting. So that was fine. But if you actually go into the mix and try to chat with people, you end up getting escorted out. And they kind of nicely but aggressively escort you out across their border. So then we headed over to the Whipple Federal Building where Garrett just was. And earlier in the day, you saw some of those, those conflicts between the ICE officers and the protesters were there. And things there, well, they got a little more interesting.
Disgrace to the human race.
Why are you wearing a mask? Why are you wearing a mask?
Because my nose is cold. Why do you care if I'm wearing a mask?
I'm just curious. Just a question.
Agitators!
This is the crowd, and they apparently are policing their borders. So they're policing their borders here, which is fascinating.
Shame! Shame!
Oh, bro, so boring.
Shame! Shame!
Do you have a job? Do you have a job?
Shame! Shame! I'm getting paid right now.
Well, and as we were leaving in our vehicle, they did what they can do. They gave us all the finger. I think they secretly liked us, so. But a few observations here. So the protests are always smaller than they look on TV. Many of the folks there seem to, seem like.
But don't worry about that. That's still with the construction things, construction. So we're gonna let them pass real quick. Continue on. So without further ado, let's continue on.
Like they do this for recreation, and there are others that are truly mourning and really upset. And others seem to be people who just don't believe the United States should have any borders. But again, they sure do aggressively police their own borders. And while, again, there were plenty of people there just peacefully protesting, there are just as many people out there who seem like lifelong members of the agitator industrial complex. You heard that one woman, unclear whether she was joking or not, saying she was paid for being there. Huh, interesting. So even if they're not throwing stuff or physically blocking ICE, disrespecting law enforcement, a lot of them just seem perpetually pissed off. Well, and I wonder why. As we see with what's happening, is more horrible news out of Portland tonight. Rage is being stoked, and it's mostly being stoked by a party with no solutions.
They wanted a moment like this, and look, it happened.
We should not have ICE agents patrolling our streets. They're not needed. They create chaos, and they even create deaths.
There are going to be protests around this entire country because of the state-sanctioned execution that we all saw.
Blood is clearly on the hands of those individuals within the administration.
ICE has been carrying out state-sanctioned violence in our communities. We have seen them terrorize so many of citizens.
But the worst of the worst today was a slimy comment by the ever-odious Tim Walz, governor of this state, claiming that he wants to calm things down. And then he invokes a Nazi threat.
We're one of those inflection points that simply asking our government to give us accountability, listen to local leaders, ratchet down the rhetoric, let people feel safe. We remembered, many of us in here in sophomore, when we read it, that the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most important directive. It certainly feels like that in this moment.
Okay, so we want to tamp things down as we keep vilifying law enforcement, federal agents. And I also say, where is the empathy for the ICE officer involved in that shooting yesterday, who, according to the New York Post, was himself dragged and hospitalized by an illegal alien driver last year? The attack on the officer, whom the Post is not naming, happened June 17th in Bloomington, Minnesota, exactly a month after embattled Minnesota Governor Tim Walz labeled ICE agents modern-day Gestapo while speaking at the University of Minnesota Law School graduation. And today, Vice President Vance blasted Democrats and the media for lying about the basic facts.
Everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Every single one of you. If the media wants to tell the truth, they ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws. You people in the media, not everybody in this room, but many people in this room have been lying about this attack. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself. He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to.
This is what we're talking about. You know, the vice president came in, the events really came on, and then gave the understanding. This is what I'm talking about. You know, this country is a law and order. People come from different countries, and people come from this generation of Americans live in a fantasy. Some of them live in a fantasy world. Like they hear the words, but they don't think what it means. You know, and they don't want to look at history and see. You got more Americans that's going to support law and order than the ones that's going to go against it. This advertising, marketing, this technology, they really think you got more people that's supporting what it really is. So you got to understand, Americans that grew up in this country we grew up with law and order. We love clean malls, clean stores, clean churches, clean communities. We love that tax dollars going to the right place to keep everything organized and structured. That's why we built this system in America for this. We got these tax dollars for this, to keep garbage people out there working, to keep trash out the streets, water treatment centers. That's why we got our system. That's why people we the desire of the world. We're the emerald on top of the hill that everybody is aspiring to get to. But how do we get there? This is a First Nation system. We have built this nation up to this level. And how we built it? We built it upon law and order in the Constitution. So we're coming together. Is anything perfect? No, but we're still building. But regardless, we're a country of law and orders. And a lot of people in our systems are coming from different worlds and bringing their ideologies here. You're not going to change America. I'm going to stand right there. You're not changing our country. You're not, no way, no how you're going to change this. The only person who can change this is God. Outside of that, hey, you're not going to change it. We can improve and we come to agreement as a people, as a society, and move forward on that. But as for moving against the very bedrock principles that we all agree as Americans, not a person been here 20, 30 years or 40 years. No. Born and raised, not the first born and raised. We're talking about your grandkids, that person that has a vested interest in this land, that have been through some things. Okay, not these new wave coming in here, but the ones that come from generation of Americans that understand this is their land. We fought for this. This is where your grandparents, great-grandparents has passed at. This is where you're going to leave, and then you'll lead generations, Americans. You understand what our system is all about, period. And so if that's what you're not about, that's what you're not about. That's your freedom to do that. But for the first of all, we are a country of law and order, and most Americans agree to it. What is your opinion? What do you think? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear from you.